What's up, everyone? Hope you guys are having a great week. Weather is finally getting good here, so I'm gonna try to kind of blast through this video and then get outside to enjoy some of the sun. It's good to finally get some of that warm, sunny weather. But anyway, Cathie Wood, I don't know if you guys know who Cathie Wood is, but she is the CEO of a company called ARK Invest. They had a bunch of ETFs. So we talked about them a couple of months ago, and she's got a new one out called ARKX. It's actually based on space exploration and development. So I wanted to do a video on that. If you guys are interested in it, it's a very, it's another cutting edge tech-based type of ETF that I find pretty interesting. We're gonna go through its goals, some of its performance metrics, and we'll look at some of the companies, maybe the top 4 or 5 companies that are inside it. So let's just get to it. All right, guys, so if you don't know me, my name is Sean. Thanks for checking out the channel. I talk about personal finance and investing videos. I'm doing a lot on ETFs and things like that because that's the bulk of my portfolio. I want to focus on that a little bit, but also do a little bit of individual companies as well. Anyway, so back to talking about Cathie Wood. We know that she has the ability to move markets. She got a lot of attention in 2020 because her ETFs were like crazy, like smashed any sort of, benchmarks for like the S&P 500 and that kind of thing. But they are largely tech-based, and they have different sizes of small cap, mid cap companies. And so I just thought I would make this video on ARKX, which is this new space ETF. Started in end of March of this year, so it's still quite young. But if you guys want to check out the previous video about ARK ETFs and that kind of thing, please check this link and check those out. Now, this isn't going to be like the last one because I'm not going to do a bunch of different ETFs. I'll actually just spend time on this one ETF, and I can go in and even give a high-level explanation of some of the companies that are in there. So I'm just going to pull up the site. All right, so this is ARKX. This is the page for this ETF, and its exposure to space exploration, including orbital and suborbital aerospace. There's a little bit more there, but this full description is probably going to help you understand that it's a little bit more. So orbital aerospace companies are companies that launch, make, service, or operate platforms in orbital space, including satellites and launch vehicles. Suborbital are companies that do the same thing. All those items don't reach a velocity needed to remain in orbit and around the planet. So these are just up there, I believe, temporarily. And then enabling technologies companies, that would be, I think their top holding qualifies for this, but we'll talk about that in a sec, are companies that develop tech used by space exploration, companies for successful value-add aerospace operations. These operations include artificial intelligence, robotics, 3D printing, materials, and energy storage. Aerospace beneficiary companies are companies whose operations stand to benefit from aerospace activities, including agriculture, internet access, GPS, construction, imaging, drones. So we'll just jump back to the top here. Under normal circumstances, at least 80% of its assets will be in domestic and foreign equity securities of companies that are engaged in the fund's investment theme of space exploration and innovation. Space exploration as leading, enabling, or benefiting from technology-enabled products that occur beyond the surface of the Earth. So it doesn't mean that these are only companies that build space shuttles or satellites. These are companies that support that, maybe do engineering for that, or stand to benefit from that. Let's go to the table on the left here. You've got your ticker symbol. The inception date is the end of March. There's no net asset value as of yet, which I thought was kind of interesting, but perhaps they're still building this. It's still not even a month old. So I'll cut Cathie some slack there. It'll be 40 to 55 holdings. The average market cap of a company in this is 176 billion. The middle company is about 30 billion. So more heavily weighted heavyweights past the $30 billion market cap. Okay, you can look at the fact sheet, prospectus, all that stuff is here. By the way, I will leave a link to this page in the description. But let's look at how ARK kind of evaluates its own performance. So it just tracks the NAV, and then it tracks the market price, and it sees how close it is above and below to the market price for each day. Basically, what you want to see is a relatively steady line when it comes to deviance, but this is sort of showing you since its inception, market price was about $20.30, and right now it's sitting at about $20.92, right, just 3 cents above its NAV. So it hasn't gained a ton, but that's okay. The NAV is tracking pretty close to the market price. Now this table will be filled out after the 3-month mark. You can kind of see how close they're tracking in more of a long-term perspective. We'll come back and revisit that a bit later. The top 10 holdings, we will get to that in a second. I just want to go down to this premium and discount section. You can see that there were some days here where where we were trading, well, mostly at a premium, but a couple that were almost 0.5% more. But what you want to see on the side table here is the percent of days between 0.5% of the NAV is 100%. So they're doing pretty good. Now this chart, it seems to only start from April 1st. So in the first, it's tracking the first 9 days, I guess, here so far. So far it's been staying within that 0.5% boundary, and it's 100% of the time. But again, this will mean more when you've got more data points. So let's just go up to the top 10 holdings, and I'm going to talk about the first 5 here. The first one is called Trimble. So Trimble is a solution-driven firm. They kind of partner with other companies, and they will kind of say like, oh, our success is our customer success, kind of like a consulting company, but they help them apply new technologies to achieve whatever goal it is that they're trying to achieve. And the industries that they work in, there's actually quite a lot. They span multiple industries, including geospatial, utility, and agriculture. It's actually hard to find anything specific to space on the website, but their satellite experience probably comes from work in the military industry. Now, the next kind of most popular holding is 5.96% is the 3D printing ETF. That is actually another ARK ETF, so I'm not going to jump into that one in too much detail, but I will tell you that the top company here is X1, who make 3D printing machines for metal and sand, and they have recently secured government contracts there as well, so their value had gone up. I think it's kind of down a little bit now, but that's the kind of thing that's in that one. I really kind of like the 3D printing space. I think it's kind of cool. Let's go now to Kratos Defense and Security. So they've served the government in a military capacity for a long time. They specialize in satellite communications and unmanned vehicles and drones and that kind of thing. So they have experience in satellite tech, and they're probably a little more directly involved in that kind of industry than Trimble might be. Trimble's kind of more broadly spread out as far as like work. So I think Kratos is probably very familiar with the government contracts and military type contracts. Okay. The fourth holding at 5.02% is L3 Harris. I hope I'm saying that right. It's a similar type of company to what we've talked about so far, but these guys are actually Canadian, so shout out to us Canadians. We're in an ARK ETF. So they're a defense-based company also supporting government military contracts and inherently having similar types of satellite communication exposure, space object tracking, and that kind of thing. So, and I will leave links to all these companies' websites in the description if you guys are interested in following up. The last one I want to talk about is Iridium Communications. They are, as the name suggests, a communication company first. So they do satellite and radio communications and have a mandate to be able to communicate with basically anything and anywhere, land, air, or sea, basically. They also have government contracts, and they also do pole-to-pole communication, which is not necessarily using satellites, but they do sat communication as well. So you can see these top 5 companies are pretty similar to each other. They all have kind of military government contracts. They all do communication, satellite, and outside of like 3D printing, they all kind of seem to sound similar. And that was one thing. I don't know if how comfortable people are in investing in companies that support military contracts or do military contracts. If that bothers you, you may want to pick and choose your companies instead of going with this ETF. If it doesn't, well, and those government contracts are great for stock prices because they're very dependable contracts, and people like to see that as investors. Now, I am not personally invested in this ETF at the moment. To be honest, if I had some money on the side, some US dollars to invest in an ARK ETF, I'm still kind of interested in the 3D printing one a little bit more than space. I think space exploration is kind of a longer, slower type of growth. I still see it as very far in the future, and I feel like 3D printing is going to be more widely accepted sooner than when we would see a huge growth in space exploration and that kind of thing. But that's totally me just speculating. I have nothing to back that up, so take that with a grain of salt. And again, I'm not a financial planner, right? Now that said, right, these companies don't just do space. That company like Trimble, they're doing a bunch of other things, so they don't necessarily need to land space-specific contracts in order to increase the value of this ETF. So that's kind of the nice thing, that some of these companies are kind of diversified and they have those government contracts, right? So I'm gonna leave, kind of this as just an introduction. We'll come back in a future video and probably look at some of these ARK ETFs, see how they perform, especially some of the newer ones, because they'll have some interesting behavior, I'm sure. So I'll just leave it there for now, guys. I hope you guys have a fantastic day. I'm gonna head out outside. Hope you guys can get out and have some fresh air too. Have a great week. Spread the wealth. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.